Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nasalli ala rasulihi al-Kareem. Amma ba'd. Brothers and sisters, when someone that you love leaves this world, there are pretty much three things that instantly happen to you. The topic that I was given today was the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ, and I thought about this title for the last week or so since I was given this topic. And if you're asked what is the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ, I'm sure you can't answer that easily, because you could say so many different answers and they're all correct. What is his legacy? I mean, for an athlete, that athlete's legacy would be, the Grand Slam he hit in a World Series. Khalas, that's his legacy. Or for this athlete, it's that shot that he, his buzzer beater, that's the legacy of this person. Or his 5 MVPs. But the Prophet ﷺ, what is his legacy? When someone says the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ, and it took me a long time to think about this. I think it's just the way of Mufti Abdul Rahman making me think. He's wanted me to think a little bit more. And I came to the conclusion that I'm going to share with you today. So when you lose a loved one, there are three things that happen immediately. And I'll share these three things in the lives of Sahaba. So the most beloved being in the hearts of Sahaba was the Prophet ﷺ. The first thing that happens when you lose a loved one is anything that reminds you of that loved one brings a lot of pain. Anything that reminds you of your loved one that you lost. Many of you know I lost my youngest brother 4 years ago, rahmatullah alayh. Every single time I'll see a Chevy HHR, which is this trashy car that was made only for 3 years. Every time I see that car on the road, it causes me pain. Because I know my brother passed away in that car. Like every Monday afternoon, that's the time where my mother called me and asked me, where's your brother? And I said, I don't know where he is. And, the whole roller coaster of emotions. So these things cause you a lot of pain when you are reminded of your loved one through those things. Think about this. Abdullah bin Abbas anhu, every Thursday, this has to be some next level love. Because for me, it lasted probably 6-7 months every Monday. Every Thursday of Abdullah bin Abbas's life, if someone was sitting with him, he would be Al-Khamis, Mal-Khamis. He would say, Thursday. What do you know about Thursday? And he would start crying. One time Sa'id bin Jubair was with him and he said, why are you crying on Thursday for? He said, you don't know? Thursday is the day when the Prophet got sick. And Thursday was the last time he led Salah in the masjid. Thursday, you don't know what Thursday is? One time Abdullah bin Abbas anhu was reading Wal Mursalati Urfa in front of his mother. Wal Mursalati Urfa, he was reading the surah. As he was reciting the surah, his mother al-Fadl begins to weep, so much so that Abdullah bin Abbas stopped reciting and attended to his mother and said, Mother, are you okay? And I would have mentioned the Arabic statements, but I don't have much time. So I'm just going to say the stories. So, are you okay? She said, oh my son, you just read the verses that I heard the Prophet reciting in his last Maghrib. The last Maghrib of his life, he recited Wal Mursalati Urfa. As soon as you started reciting it, it made me think of me standing behind the Prophet and hearing it. Abu Bakr anhu one day walks into the masjid, smiling, perfectly fine, good mood. Walks into the masjid in his khilafah, and he sits down on the minbar. And it was his habit that he would sit on the step lower than the step of the Prophet out of respect for him. He wouldn't sit in the same place. He sits down in a good mood, smiling. He looks up, and then he remembers what day it was and what time it was. فَاسْتَعْبَرَ وَبَكَى. He just started choking up and started crying so profusely. And people stayed quiet in front of him, weren't speaking. And then he said, this exact day, 1 year ago, was the last time the Prophet sat on this member. The famous last speech he gave, that Allah gave me a choice between dunya and akhirah, and I chose him, that speech. And me sitting here today reminded me of that. So that's the first thing that happens, is that you go through that painful experience every time you're reminded of that person. The second thing that happens is anyone or anything that your beloved loved, the bond with that person or thing strengthens. Do you understand what I just said? I'll give you an example. My youngest brother, when he was alive, rahmatullah alayh, his favorite basketball player was Steph Curry. My favorite basketball player is Michael Jordan, because I can play like MJ. All right. I'm not joking. Oh, you guys laughing? All right, so I can play like MJ. I love MJ. To a point where the first time I ever saw the Kaaba, the dua I made was, oh Allah, give Michael Jordan hidayah. And since this is a very intimate gathering and Rehan's going to cut this this clip out after, the first time I went, inshallah it will be cut. The first time I went, don't put your phones away please. The first time I went to Mecca was 2000 for Hajj. And my father is one of those guys, you know, he builds you up for the moment. He's like a perfect coach. He's like an army person. Builds you up, and then you get there. Any dua you make when you see the Kaaba, it will be accepted. So, all right, perfect. My youngest brother was 2 years old at that time, so it was 4 of us. My mother was with us. We go, and we all make dua. Then we sit in the corner, and my dad loves to get report. You know, like, what did you make dua? Like, but that's private. You know, like, how about if my brother made dua to get married to a certain sister? Then what happened? All right. He just got exposed. So my brother was 13 years old at that time, so that wasn't possible. So he started asking, you know, what dua did you make? What dua did you make? And my older brother just said, Abuji, I made dua that, oh Allah, accept every dua I make for the rest of my life. So I want you guys to make that dua every time you see the Kaaba, okay? Every time you're in a state, Thabit al-Bunani, he says, inni la'a'lamu hina yustajabu li Rabbi. He said, Wallahi, I know when my du'as are accepted. Wallah, I just know it. They said, how do you know when your du'as are accepted? حين اقشعر قلبي حين اقشعر جلدي ووجلت قلبي وفاضت عيناي. He says, when my heart starts to tremble, when I start feeling goosebumps and I start tearing up, like sometimes you have that in your talk, sometimes you have that in a moment. He said, at that moment, when I'm in that state, I know Allah will accept my dua. So whenever you're in that moment, you only have that moment it's very short-lived, right? So in that moment, make dua, oh Allah, accept all my duas. Or make dua for your parents, like one of the two. So he said, oh Allah, accept all my duas for the rest of my life. My father looked at me and he said, what dua did you make? And I was like, one of those, the kid in your family that you have no hope in, that was me. So my dad said, what dua did you make? I said, Abuji, it's between me and Allah. He said, no, I want to know what dua you made. I said, no, don't ask me. He said, finally he pushed me. I said to him, I made dua, oh Allah, give Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan hidayah. My dad looked at me and he said to me, Tumne in beghairaton ka naam yahan likhiya? He's like, these people, shameless characters, you said their name in this place? And I said, well, wallahi, I wasn't preparing for it. It's the first thing that came to my mind. I never prepared for it. It's like when I saw the Kaaba, that's what I first made dua for. Khair, inshallah, Allah give them hidayah. Say ameen. All right. If I ever see Michael Jordan, I'll tell him I wasted my dua on you. I am going to say that to him. And I remember I came to Houston many years ago and I saw Hakim Olajuwon in one of the masjids over here. I met him. I walked out with him. I said, Hakim, you know what? I told him the story. I said, this is what I did. So you have a responsibility to make me meet him so I can tell him I made dua for you. And I wasted it on you. He said, don't say that. Inshallah, Allah will give me hidayah. My brother's favorite player was Steph Curry. The moment my brother passed away, my bond with this character that I don't even know strengthened. I started loving his game. I started watching him more. I started wanting to play like him more, shooting deeper threes, because I know my brother had like a bond with this person. This is an example to drive home. Anything your beloved loved, your bond with that strengthens. That's how it works. So when the Prophet passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who do you think and what do you think was the most beloved thing to him? That after he left this world, the bond between the Sahaba and that thing or that person strengthened. Because that is a natural reaction of an aftermath of losing a loved one. And the answer to this question is his legacy. What do you think the Prophet loved the most? Who do you think the Prophet loved the most? And I want you to tell yourself that the Prophet loved you the most. There is nothing more beloved to the Prophet ﷺ in this entire world than his ummah. The amount of virtues the Prophet ﷺ gave and encouraged the ummah, us people, the people that he loved the most, to protect each other is unbelievable. You heard of ikhlas before, right? Ikhlas. Ikhlas means what? To do something for the sake of Allah. And whenever you hear the lecture of ikhlas, don't do anything for anyone else. Do it for the sake of Allah. Well, spoiler alert, there's a hadith where the Prophet says, "Man qada li ahadin min ummati hajatan liyasurrahu." The Prophet loved his ummah so much that he said, a person who fulfills the need of a person from my ummah, okay? I need coffee, not want, I need it right now, okay? And yeah, that's a sign, so all you guys should get some coffee from me. Ye Houston wale begharat hain, nahi karenge. Okay. So I said, I need coffee, all right? Now, Man qada li ahad min ummati hajatan liyasurrahu. Now to make me happy, someone goes and gets me coffee. To make me happy, khalas, not to make Allah happy, to make me happy. I'm not saying this, it's not my own words. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَقَدْ سَرَّنِي. This person has made me happy. The Prophet is saying, you did something to make someone happy? From my ummah, you made me happy. وَمَنْ سَرَّنِي فَقَدْ سَرَّ اللَّهِ. And a person who made me happy, he has made Allah happy. وَمَنْ سَرَّ اللَّهِ أَدْخَلَهُ اللَّهُ جَنَّةً. And the one who makes Allah happy, Allah gives him entrance to the Jannah. And the Prophet knew the way people would lose respect for one another, the people that he loved the most, was when their sins are exposed. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, when he heard someone talking about someone's sin, he came on the member and he said, let me tell you something. Man satara musliman فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا مَؤُودًا. And he left. He said, a person who sees someone doing a sin and then hides their sin. Why? Because a father loves to hide his own children's faults, don't you? A mother does not like it when someone exposes them. We run a boarding school. It doesn't matter what happens. A parent could dislike his children, but he doesn't like it when his children's faults are exposed. Why did you embarrass my child? Because you have love for your child. The Prophet does not want his ummah to be embarrassed. So when you expose someone, you're embarrassing someone he loves. So he came on the member and he said, a person who exposes someone from my ummah, this person will be exposed in front of Allah on the Day of Judgment. And a person who hides the faults of someone from my ummah, you know what the reward of that is? As if he was walking in a desert and a father or mother in the Jahiliyyah days had a baby girl and they were digging a grave to bury that baby girl who was alive, to bury her alive. And this person comes and he says, don't do that. Please don't bury her alive. What's her fault? She's a gift to you. Don't bury her. And takes that child and gives that child life. The Prophet said, the reward this person would have gotten for that is the same reward you get for not exposing somebody. Why? Because sometimes some sins are such when they're exposed, you rather just die. So when you hide someone's sins, it's as if you're giving them life. Let me just tell you something. On the Day of Judgment, Aisha asked the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, I want to meet you on the Day of Judgment. There's going to be billions of people there. Where will I find you? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, you will find me in 3 places. 3 places. Number 1, he said, you will find me when Allah will be giving the book of deeds to His servants. You know how nowadays our chant is free, free Palestine? Correct? May Allah give them freedom. Say Ameen. You know what the Prophet's chant's going to be in Jannah, in Akhirah? The Prophet's chant on the Day of Judgment, when Allah will be giving the book of deeds, will be, Ya Rabbi Sallim Sallim. Ya Rabbi Sallim Sallim. Oh Allah, please protect them. Oh Allah, please forgive them. Oh Allah, please help them. The Prophet ﷺ will be saying this throughout that day. The book of deeds will be coming in your hand. Towards your left hand, the Prophet will say, Ya Rabbi Sallim Sallim. Ya Rabbi Sallim. Please, oh Allah. Please, oh Allah. Please, oh Allah. And then Allah will listen to him and Allah will give it in the right hand. The Prophet ﷺ said, another place you will find me will be when the deeds will be on the scale. And sometimes the bad deeds will be outweighing the good deeds, and I will say to the angels in Allah, Ya Rabbi Sallim Sallim, Ya Rabbi Sallim, oh Allah please, oh Allah please. And the third place you will find me is where my ummah will be slipping off the bridge and falling in Jahannam. وَأَنَا آخِذٌ بِحُجَزِكُمْ عَنِ النَّارِ. And I'll be grabbing them by their waist and pulling them out, physically. When inshallah, say inshallah, all of us get our book of deeds in our right hand, we're going to go straight to the doors of Jannah, inshallah. When we get there, I'm just letting you know how the scene's going to be before you go there. So when you get there, and it's going to be exactly the way I'm saying it, you're going to remember me, inshallah. You're like, oh, that guy I came to Houston, it's going to be the way I'm telling you right now, right? There's some scholars who come, they tell you about scenes in Jahannam. Don't worry, we're not going there. Okay? We're going to Jannah, inshallah. So let's talk about that. So there'll be, when we get our book of deeds, most of us, I'm saying most of us, some of us not, most of us will just run to the doors of Jannah, to get to Jannah. When we get there, we will be surprised to see that the doors of Jannah will be closed. They'll be closed, they won't be open. Because of this verse in Surah Zumar, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءُوهَا وَفُتِحَتْ أَبْوَابُهَا. The people of Jannah, when they get to Jannah, Allah says, when they get there, وَفُتِحَتْ. And then the doors will be open. But the people of Jahannam, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءُوهَا فُتِحَتْ أَبْوَابُهَا. The people of Jahannam, when they get to Jahannam, there will be no pause. They'll get there and go right into Jahannam. But the people of Jannah, there'll be a pause. They'll wait outside of Jannah. Why? Because the last person to get there will be the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because he's trying to help people. He's trying to help the people he loves the most. His legacy is that I want every single one of these people to be protected from Jahannam. So he's not running to Jannah. He's struggled in dunya. And he's going to continue to struggle in akhirah. And so we will all get there. But he won't get there. And the doors of Jannah cannot open until the Prophet gets there. So we'll be sitting in this lounge of Jannah. So when you go on Spirit Airlines like I do all the time, you get there 20 minutes before the flight because there's no lounge. But if you fly business class Emirates, you come there 5 hours before. And you're like, we don't know what that looks like. But inshallah one day you'll find out. 5 hours before, you have Turkish Airlines business class, you look for a longer layover in Turkey. You have Turkish Airlines economy class, you're like, quick layover in Turkey. All right, we have Jannah. So there's going to be a lounge outside of Jannah. And there's going to be 2 rivers outside of Jannah. The first river is going to be a river from which we will wash our bodies and our faces. Once we put that water on our faces and our limbs, Allah will give us the beauty of Jannah. So you know this hairline that's recessing, we won't have to go to Turkey for that. Right? The moment we use that water, Allah will give us perfect hair again. No, you guys are laughing. Wallahi, when you go there, you'll remember me. Inshallah. Okay? When you put that water on your face, you're going to get the nadara, the beauty of a jannati. So you know what, sisters? If your husband's looking a little bit off, just wait a few more years and Jannah, he'll be fine. And the opposite is true as well. Okay? So and the nadara will be the first handful of water. Everyone will get the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam. Everybody will get beautiful. And then the other river that's there, you will drink from that. That one you won't put on your body. You'll drink from that. You know what's going to happen with that drink of water? All the filth, the urine, the stool, everything in your body will go away. And one more thing will go away, which is so powerful. Because Islam is so realistic. Aren't there people in this world that cause you so much trouble that even after forgiving them, there's still some traces left in your heart? Am I right? There's such people that are just evil. You know, the sisters are like, yeah, in-laws. Hey man, you gotta love your in-laws, right? So these are so evil. You know, there's like something, there's some traces. That's why there's a dua, if you want like a very good prescription for that, because even that is not a good thing. There's actually a dua for this. Allahumma adhib ghayda qalbi wa ajirni min mudillat al-fitan ma ahyaytana. Oh Allah, just clean the edges of my heart. The last reminiscence that's left, wipe that away as well. So, but that's acceptable in the eyes of Allah. You tried to forgive, but somehow it's just not, like somehow it's not going away. But you tried your best. So when you drink that water, that will go away too. Khalas, that will go away. The Prophet won't be there though, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because he'll be running around trying to help his ummah. And his entrance into Jannah will be delayed because of his ummah. I'll say one more thing, then I'll go to the third thing, I'll conclude. Imam Shafi'i was asked, how is it so easy for you to forgive people? Forgiveness is not easy. But I'm going to tell you what he said. Just one thing he said. This is a long poem. من نال مني أو علقت بذنبه أبرأته لله راجيا منته كي لا أعوق مؤمنا يوم الجزاء أن أسوء محمدا في أمته. He says, if someone does something wrong to me, I forgive them right away. Why? Because of two reasons. Number one, I don't want to be an obstacle for somebody else. You know, in dunya, being an obstacle for somebody else, like someone's trying to go, how annoying is it when you're in line in the highway and someone goes on the shoulder and gets in front of you? You're like, I'm usually that guy. Okay? You go on that other lane, you come in. Like, I was waiting here for like an hour and you skip the line, right? Imagine in Jannah and Akhirah, you are an obstacle for someone else going to Jannah because you never forgave them. So now they're not going to get to Jannah. They have to wait, and they have to wait, and they have to wait, and they have to wait. Imam Shafi'i says, I don't like no one waiting in this world. How will I be okay with them waiting in Akhirah? Someone standing at my door, knocks on my door. I don't like them waiting. Someone needs money. I don't like them waiting. Someone needs food. I don't want them to wait. But someone needs Jannah. Why should I make them wait? I forgive them. That's the first reason. And the second reason is, أَنْ أَوْ أَسُوءَ مُحَمَّدًا فِي أُمَّتِهِ. Should I really not forgive this person? And because I don't forgive this person, now the Prophet has to intercede on behalf of this person. And now that intercession will delay the Prophet getting to Jannah. So do I really want the Prophet to be delayed to get to Jannah? I don't want that to happen. So the Prophet's legacy was the people in this room. This is who the Prophet loved us more than anything in this world. And that is why we love each other for the sake of Allah, because of the Prophet loving us. And we work together. We love each other. Because the fastest way to get to Jannah is with people. You heard what I just said? The fastest way to get to Jannah is with people. And people are not perfect. The Prophet already told the Sahaba that people will not be perfect. But we just have to manage living in this imperfect world with imperfect people to get to the perfect abode, which is Jannah. And finally, the third thing, when someone leaves this world, someone that you love, when he leaves or she leaves, you always, one of the most frequently asked questions is, do they know what we're doing? You understand what I just said? Do they get the news? Because Eid is tough. When you have children, imagine someone who's not just had nikah. We have people like this. Sheikh Umar Suleiman, a close friend of mine, just got his nikah was done and his mother passed away all of a sudden. Before his wedding, before he had children. And when we speak all the time, it's a question like, does my mother know about my children? Does she know what I'm going through? Does she know what I'm doing? Does she know about all this stuff? Does my brother know about Miftaah and what we're doing here? This is the question. And the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. Because when people leave this world, they get news from each other. And Abu Darda anhu and Abu Darda radiallahu anhu and a Sahabi by Abdullah bin Rawaha, these two became brothers in Medina. The Prophet made them brothers. Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, his entire life in his sajda, he used to make this dua. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min an a'mala amalan ukhza bihi inda Abdullah bin Rawaha. He says, oh Allah, I seek refuge that I do such an act that is presented to my brother Abdullah and he's embarrassed of me. He's disappointed. The third thing when someone leaves this world is you want to do something in a manner in which they're proud of you. You want to finally meet them again and they're proud and happy with you. And this is what the Sahaba wanted as well. And this is a legacy of the Prophet ﷺ. We could be deficient in our good deeds when it comes to ibadah, no problem. But the Prophet's greatest disappointment will be when he sees people in this room that don't like each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he sees that, he will be disappointed. So the last thing that happens, the third impact when you lose a loved one, is somehow you live your life so that you can meet them again and they could be proud of you. That I did this and I did that and I did this. May Allah make us among those. That when we finally meet the Prophet ﷺ, he's proud of us. We can take care of his legacy, which is the people in this room. We love them for the sake of Allah. We love each other even though we're imperfect, because this is the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ, to stay united, to stay together, to love those who he loved. And yes, seeing those things is a painful experience, but if it motivates us to love what our beloved loved, it's all worth it. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.